Higher Education Officer at Education Scotland with responsibility for social studies. So this afternoon we're going to be doing a familiarisation webinar looking at the Go Forth, Discover, Create and Design resources that are freely available for everybody. So you can access them through Glow. They're also available on open source sites, and we'll cover all of that. So we're going to give you an overview of what each one is, what they cover in terms of the curriculum, and a little bit more. So as I've said, we'll talk about them within the context of the Social Studies and Technologies curriculum. We'll show you how we've aligned them and where to access them. We're also going to talk to you a little bit about how these resources were created and how what the process is. That the team at Historic Environmental Scotland and Glasgow School of Art, who combined to be the CDDV, who created the resources, that they went through in order to capture some of the data sets. So these can be also used to support developing young workforce, in addition to people, place and environment in the context of social studies. So we're then going to look at the 3 different packs, although there are 5 and I will cover that too, but we're going to focus on the 3 main ones, which are Go Forth and Discover, Go Forth and Create, Go Forth and Design. And then at the end, we're going to show you just some additional places to go, get help, where to find out everything that we're showing you, and next steps. So to put it into context, as many of you will be aware, the Forth Bridge is used in loads of advertising, loads of media, it's on our money, and so it's really prominent. So when we're considering it within its place within the E's and O's, it fits in within the people, place and environment organiser within social studies. 3 learning packs were created, as I've mentioned. So we've got Go Forth and Discover. They're colour-coded in line with the bridges. So Go Forth and Discover is the red of the 4th bridges. The 4th bridge, we've got Go Forth and Design, and that is predominantly a CAD technologies-based product. And then we've got Go Forth and Create, which is a computing science-based one. All of them cover social studies, but all of them cover technologies too. Discover is the one that focuses most on social studies and the development of understanding of social studies, but it also puts it in the field of games-based learning. We've also got the 2 that are at the bottom there in black, so Go Forth and Explore and Go Forth to See and Hear. We're not going to cover it at the moment. Go Forth and Explore is a location-based app, so because of the pandemic, there is an app available. You can download it, but we're not going to look at it here, and it's not part of these educational resources, but it is there for you. Go Forth, See and Hear. All of the resources have 360 film footage that accompany them. And these are on the YouTube channel, and they're all linked to in the packs that I'm going to show you. So that's what the last one is. It's a VR based option. So the 3 packs look like this, and as you can see, outlined on the front of them what each one is specifically focused on. So social studies is Discover, that's about the 4th bridge. For trains, the other 2 focus predominantly on technologies, but within the context of the 4th bridge and social studies. So Discover is basically 10 games-based learning challenges which can be played all in one go or individually, and they're also incorporating historical images that are used to build and support awareness of the importance of the 4th bridge within the context. As you can see here, we've given pupil objectives which are directly linked to the experiences and outcomes, and benchmarks, and they're labelled within the teaching pack, so there's like a lesson plan that comes along with it. As part of the process, one of the things that was done was that we had to capture what all of the bridges looked like, the state they were in, and record them. So that's done by the Digital Documentation team. So the Centre for Digital Documentation team, which is partnership, as you can see on the screen, is between Historic Environmental Scotland and Glasgow School of Art. They worked together, so the Digital Documentation team from Historic Environmental Scotland went out and captured it. So this short video, which we're not going to watch in its entirety, lets you see what the context of this bridge is. But the reason that I want to show you this is when you're using these projects, it's important for young people to see how bridges are captured, understand the importance of current roles in them, because obviously these bridges, apart from the new ones, are historical. Especially the 4th bridge, it was built in the 1880s. So we need them to understand how this information is captured and data is gathered from them. So you can see here there's a DYW-based film that we've created, which talks around what the process was, the fact that it was laser scanned, and then that was created into a 3D point cloud. And point clouds, I've got a picture to show you later on there. You've probably seen them online. They look quite ethereal and ghostly. They're really beautiful usually. So the point cloud can be used with conservation. It can also be used to support health and safety. And the ones that we've used in the game are the ones that are industry standard, so precise. So if I just move on a little bit more. So there's also some data. So when people were capturing them using LiDAR and laser scanning, and if you've seen the ads for the new iPhone, you know LiDAR is on people's phone now. But we couldn't take, it shows you here how many scans. So there were 1,500 scans, but if you have a look at the bottom, each scan of the bridge, the fourth bridge alone, had 22 billion data points on it. So nobody's mobile phone could capture that. But it's really important that young people see the link between the technology that's on their phone as well as how it can then progress into something that can be used as a career in the future. So,
this video also lets young people see the highly talented team who were responsible for scanning and capturing the data from all of the bridges. So here we have some laser scanners capturing the road bridge at different positions on, under and by the side. There's also images that show time-lapse and how that was captured to get all of the data points around it, so on land as well as on the bridge itself. And there were also some on the boats that you saw there. This is a lady called Dr. Lynn Wilson and some members of her amazing team who had the bridge shut down to capture the data and work through the night from the bridge. So again, it's important to let our young people see this isn't a gender-dominated area. This is something that is open to everybody. There's a huge wealth of skills in there, and there's lots of people with lots of interests that could be taking part in this, from archaeology right through to engineering. This is a member of the team called Adam. He is putting on, he's pulling all the data from the raw point data, which is these sort of pencil drawings at the side, and he's making the point cloud, which is that sort of green-yellow image that you see on his monitor, and that's at Glasgow School of Art. So again, letting young people see the whole process that is gone through from capturing to viewing. Once all of the data has been meshed together through different software, it begins to look like this.
And there is a video that plays through, but we're not going to do it because I don't know if my network will actually cope. Well, there we go. So you can see you can actually move inside the video, inside the point cloud. You can have a look around it, and that's what engineers are looking for when you often see in the news sometimes that the fourth bridge has been closed down and things like that. This is what they're looking at. And all those tiny little triangles that you're seeing here are the data points that information was captured from. Okay, so there's lots of these fly-throughs that are available. And the point clouds look like this. And you've got all different aspects, and all of these images are available in the packs too. Parts of the bridge were also scanned, so using something called photogrammetry. And again, there's apps. Your school has iPads. There are apps that you can put onto your iPad or your phone or a device at home, and you can scan the family pet, or you could scan your recreation of an artifact from history. So this is actually me getting shown how to use photogrammetry. So all that basically happens is that's a rivet from the original bridge. The camera takes photos all the way around, and just like you saw in the first photograph with Adam, they are then meshed together to make a 3D object, and I now have that as a 3D printed item at home. So all of these things, your young people could be replicating them using these industry techniques that they're slowly building up and learning, preparing them for the world of work, but putting it in the context of social studies. So to use historical images rather, what the project also did is work with National Records of Scotland and archives, and they took lots of photographs and images that put things into context, just like many of us would do in our classroom environment with our classes. So obviously young people might find it quite hard to relate. You know, we can talk to them about what types of clothing people have, but it's a bit abstract and it's a bit remote.
So again, highly specialist 3D modelers have used a technique called cinematograph.
So a little bit Harry Potterish.
To keep it as factually accurate as possible, we also used individuals who were identified in the images as our main character.
When you're doing that, if I just click these all to start, you can see images move, it brings them to life. Young people can interact with them a little bit more. It makes it feel just that little bit more alive and a little bit more engaging. So again, we've got that little bit raised engagement. We can also add, if you see there, if I just click that again, the train can move over the bridge, the man's jacket can flap, a seagull's about to appear. There is audio on this, but not in this presentation. And then this is a timeline showing the process of the bridge being built and opening until the present day. So there's lots of techniques. But one thing I would say is using lots of tools that we have available, PowerPoint tools, Keynote, we can do a version of this with our young people. So again, that whole preparing them, but using these historical images as the context for our learning. And then we've used characters throughout the game that were based from history. So again, if you've got a secondary class or a much older class, you could be using, there's an archive team, and again, the packs give you links to where to go to get these speakers to come to either do it remotely in the current situation or for you to go on a trip or so on. But we've picked out young people or people who worked on the bridge. We've made a version of them come alive, so we've got characters for our game. So again, they could identify them. So this is David, he's a rivet catcher, he works on the bridge. And then we've also got Mr. Hay, and he's the gang leader. So David's based on the photograph. You can see we've got images, and if you've been to any of our previous social studies webinars, we've talked about 3D modelling and the importance. So we had 3D modelers that worked on this who were super talented and recreated from the photographs a character that could move about and be part of the games-based learning. So again, that link with like computer games and computing science. And also quite often we would get our young people to look at historical reference materials. We would get them to look up online or maybe even recreate headline paper. So we've taken an actual newspaper from the day, so this one here, the Illustrated London News. The resource here shows the front cover, which was always a photograph for this sort of thing. And this is the Prince of Wales at the time. And he is known to have hammered in the last rivet, but you will see he really did not hammer home the last rivet, but he did put it in, sort of. So what we've done here, and again, this is something that young people could do with a range of techniques in PowerPoint, Keynote, and lots of other apps, is if I click here, it zooms in for our young people during the game. They see the prince move, and then they see him twist that lever, which is him turning the last rivet home. And then somebody underneath does sort of more of the hard work. So we've also got images that were taken from the day, and then again, there's linking back to that photogrammetry thing of an actual rivet. And the reason the rivets are so important is, and here's a sort of top tip if you're ever in a quiz, there are
6.5 million rivets in the Forth Bridge.
And they are about I would say probably about 5 inches by about 2 inches. So they're quite hefty, solid things. But we've given you the files so that if you do have access to 3D printers with your cluster, your school or the library, you could print these out. And again, you could start to look at like them in context. So all of those photographs from history have been used to build the bridge through time. And in between that, in Go Forth and Discover, we've used gameplay to develop learners' understanding of what life would have been like for David as a rivet catcher who is a young boy working there. So as you can see, each game, so there'll be some photographs that move through time, show the bridge building, and this is game 1. So he has to catch as many rivets through all the challenges as he can. So again, really familiar process for young people. This game is designed for Windows devices. It's compatible with the oldest school PCs that are on any network that we looked at procurement from, right through to being Windows 10 compatible. It's totally free to download, and there isn't an Apple version. It's just Windows. So what David has to do here is we're starting to look at how life would have been like for him. So we would often get up, we might walk to school, lots of us would get dropped or driven to school, but David had to walk 8 miles to get to school, and that's all in the learning pack. It talks about his life and where he might have come from. When we play the game, if I just hit play here, you'll see the young people's given instruction. They have to catch these rivets, a little bit like if you're familiar with Temple Run, a bit similar. So they have to catch the rivets as they're making their way through. So they can talk about what the housing would have been like. They can talk about the rivets. Obviously, they're much bigger. They're not the size in the bridge. They have to pass different hurdles, and his task is to essentially get to the end. It rolls right through. He keeps going, and then he has to get to the boat that takes him out to the part of the bridge that he's going to be working on. At each challenge, he's met by his gang leader, called Mr. Hay, and his gang leader then tells him, like, you've done a good job, you've collected enough rivets, or gives him some advice, or sometimes gets him in trouble if he's not done, because we've tried to put it in the context of what life would have been like for him. All the way through the game, the gang leader, who in the time would have decided how much money the team got, he decided what their wages were, and the Rivet Boys got the least amount of money. So David has to work really hard to earn his pay. So we've tried to put that over in a way that's not distressing for young people. So once he's there, there'll be some more of those images during the game, and then you get another challenge. So this one is an example of challenge 2, where he's on his boat, but because it's Scotland, it's been raining, he's maybe got wet, he's gone out, and he needs to select the right clothing. So again, many of us would look at clothing through that era. We might talk about clothing now versus then. We could do a science experiment about different types of materials. So here our young person has to select the right clothing that would go. As you can see at the side, there's cards that give them information, and all of the information is then needed later on, but they can go back to these units and they can repeat them if they've maybe missed it. Also, we've provided packs which come alongside it. So all of these clothing packs are available as image cards and text cards. So if you wanted to do like a pairs activity, or use them for a display, or young people to put them into some sort of presentation, that is also possible. And once they've selected what they think might be the right clothes, they can check this as many times as they want. The fewer times they check and the quicker they do it, the more points they receive. So he says, check your pockets and see if you've got any rivets. And so on. So the next challenge for Climb is to give the young people a sense of scale. So we'll not watch the whole thing, but I'll let you see a little bit of it here. So again, they're just navigating using keyboard skills around it, and then they have to find equipment. So again, we're looking at that context of how dangerous it would have been to climb around on the bridge, and that's reinforced by the visual photographs. And we're also looking at the equipment that they might have used and tools, and we can again look at the technologies. Easy knows about how technology has changed, and many engineering tools that were used on the Forth Bridge were created so that the Forth Bridge could be built, so they hadn't been used before. So for example, hydraulic jacks and things like that, that was designed by the engineer who used the bridge. So they can research and look at current tools versus old tools, and there's a whole aspect of learning that can be taking place through that. And as you can see, they've got a toolbox they have to build up, and they can check their items at any time. We've then given them some activities to do with the actual rivets, because his job was a rivet boy. And in the Victorian time, when the bridge was being built, the rivet boy basically would be on a bit of the bridge, hanging off, or on a rig, which was a bit shonky nowadays, we probably wouldn't use it. And the rivets would be heated up by somebody, as you can see here, with long tongs, but they would be thrown from the tongs to the rivet boy, who wouldn't have gloves. They would have like a bit of a chamois to catch it, put it in the space for somebody else to hammer it. So again, it's talking about what would that life experience be like, and that can be done through photographs within as much depth as you want. So you can see here, there's sort of like a whack-a-mole game a little bit, where they have to put them in the right joints, and there's a timing game. So we've tried to mix the activities, tried to mix a range of the games-based learning, which would have taken place in the style that happened at the time, but put it in a context that our young people can develop. their understanding. We've used images as puzzles, and again, these are something that they can use and create themselves, and they just rotate around. There's a time challenge, and again, the faster they complete the activity, the more points they get. And then we've built a quiz in, and this relates back to the card that you saw perhaps for the clothing. So as you saw all the way through, and sometimes with the photographs, there's information being shared with the young person. So hopefully they've been learning with offline as well as online, and they've been doing lots of research and learning about it. And then they have to basically get asked questions. So young people who worked on the bridge, they would have brought mainly their own food, but we've imagined that David here's gone in and his job is to get the questions right so his team can get fed. So it's showing you there are 6.5 million rivets, just like I was saying earlier, and if he gets it right, somebody gets fed. What we've also done in the aspect of the quiz is we've produced a Microsoft forum that if you go on the pack, not from this code will let you play the game on your phone. If you've got a phone, please feel free to scan that QR code. But what we've done is create the quiz as a Microsoft form that gives you an automatically duplicated copy in your Glow account. So that then allows you to issue that as an assignment in Teams. It allows you to issue it as some sort of blended learning activity or homework, and you can choose. And obviously, for those of you who are not familiar or maybe haven't used Microsoft Forms, essentially this is what it would look like if they did it on their phone. So they're scrolling through, each question's mandatory, and then towards the end, it shows them if they got it right. There we go. If they got it right, and if they didn't get it correct, it gives them some information that would guide them towards the correct answer. So that's all available via links in the pack. And then obviously the bridge is super famous for being painted. So we've done a section on the paint, and we've looked at, again, looking at maybe chemical compounds and linseed oils and things like that. So he has to paint it in the right order, get it correct, and then he gets points. So that is, in a nutshell, go forth and create. I am going to show you all of the resources in Glow at the end of this, but do we have any questions just now on go forth and discover, rather?
Nothing in the chat yet, Jenny, but maybe we could pause for a minute, see if anybody wants to put their microphone on.
No, nothing so far. If anybody has anything, please do feel free to pop into the chat and ask, or like Susan says, unmute your microphone, because hopefully you can see how you might use them. And if you can see how you might use them, pop that into the chat too. We'd be really keen to hear how you think you might use these resources.
Jenny?
Yes?
Miss Lamont says she missed a few minutes, but what age would you recommend this is for?
Oh, so it's designed for sort of P4 to S2. So obviously that's, I recognise that's quite a wide scope, but you can go into things as much depth or as little depth as you want. So the whole pack probably P4. I've done it, we've done it with pupils through all of that age group in the demo groups, and it was well received by all of them. What I would say is some of the reading ability, the cards only move on as fast as the learner can read. So in terms of that might be the only snag issue. In terms of accessing the language involved. But yeah, P4 to S2. And then the computing science stuff, I would probably say that's P5, 6 to S1, 2. And the CAD stuff would probably be P5, 6 to S2 as well. So this is go forth and create. So this is the computing science one. So as I was just saying, sort of P5 up through to S2, depending on the ability and knowledge of the class. And again, we've identified objectives, and these are aligned in the lesson packs to the technologies E's and O's. So in case somebody is looking at this and thinking, okay, so I've not used Scratch before, which is the program that we've used to create these resources. The lesson packs are designed to show you step by step exactly what it is that you're doing. And if any of you have code clubs which run in your school or young people attend, these would be a nice way to introduce computing science. It's maybe used at Code Club as an IDL topic in your class. So it's a nice way to look at the historic stuff, but also to design your own. So Go Forth and Create is basically showing young people within the context of the 3 bridges this time how to create a quiz using computing science. So all of the packs contain a link to the completed computing science project. So I'll show you at the end as well where all of these can be found. And they're all available. So you can see on my screen, I've got the See Inside project. So it shows you what it should look like if your learners are working independently. And so just to give you a little bit more confidence if that's not something that you're familiar with. All of these sprites, all of these resources at the bottom are also provided for you. So everything that you could possibly need for all of this pack is completely provided. But there's nothing stopping our young people like developing their own and adding in their own characters and being creative that way too. So if I just click here, you can see. So the young person in this challenge is issued with an image of a transportation, and they're asked to identify which bridge it would go across. So they would have done some research about what each of the bridges permits. Then they would go off, they would learn their computer science skills, and they would develop their understanding of how to create a quiz using broadcast modes often in this one, and then that allows them to create a quiz. For a more freehand creative project, we've also included one where they could create their own animation. So, you know, there could be like stuff falling on the track, or it could be that the bridge suddenly changes direction and goes uphill and so on. Again, all of the resources are provided for you. We've given you, so this is where the animation pages, it basically just rotates as if it's going across a never-ending page. So all of that is available in there, and all of the lesson packs kind of give you ideas on how to do that. But we've focused, the lesson pack looks at how to create a quiz. And once you have those skill sets, and you've used it for the 4th bridge, you could do a survey. You could look at bridges in your area. You could use it for anything really. So again, it's about that, using it in the context that builds up transferable skills. And the last pack that we have is Go Forth and Design. So this is, again, within the context of social studies, looking at the 4th bridge as an important landmark in Scotland. This is looking at CAD, so computer-aided design, and craft and design skills that people would have. So engineers, architects, and so on. So you can see here, again, same format. We've given people objectives, which line with the E's and O's and benchmarks. This is using a program called Tinkercad. So Tinkercad is completely free. As I've said, everything in here is totally free. And again, there's a completed pack. That's what you're viewing here. All of the components of the bridge are broken down, and we've labelled them as well. You don't need if you're creating an account to use with your class, we would always suggest that you speak to your information security officer or your digital learning team in your local authority. But for you to go in and have a look, you would just register with your Go account, and you can create people accounts. There's no cost attached to that at all, and you don't have to put their information in. It gives them a PIN to basically access it. But as with anything, like we say, please check with your digital team around GDPR compliance. So obviously, the 4th bridges are really important as a world I can't speak anymore, as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but also many of the components in the bridge are part of bridges that might be in your local area. So just because they're in there doesn't mean that we've given you all of these as individual like sort of files that you can import into Tinkercad too. So if you have a bridge that only uses some of these, you might not want them all available to your young people. So you could put that in where it's just looking at sort of suspension bridges, the suspension spans with towers or viaducts and so on. So you can move that around. You can also use that and create it yourself. You could give them a blank canvas with just some components, and all of these items are exactly to scale because they were taken from the laser scans that you saw earlier. So something as detailed as that with like billions of points of information can be used in this. So it looks really child friendly, but actually it's doing the same job just in a much more sort of child-friendly way as these industry standards products are. But you can see here there's lots of flexibility. We're not looking at how you use Tinkercad today. This isn't like a training session on Tinkercad, but that is coming up in Term 3. If anybody wants to come to that webinar, we're looking at one specifically for that. So just to put that out there. And as with the fourth bridge one, there's also one for the road bridge. And these videos are also available so that you can speak to your young people about that and they can have a little fly through and look at things. And there is one for the Queensferry crossing. So hopefully there's something in there. And again, just like anything else, they're all to scale. They've all been taken based on the laser scan measurements. And they can all be sort of cannibalized to design your own bridge. So let's make the fourth bridge, or it could be, it could be something for your area or whatever. So a really flexible model and a really simple, easy to use tool. So as I've covered there, and we're going to go into where you see all the resources next, but that's the 3 packs that we've looked at there, where the Go Forth and Discover, which focuses on the social studies, E's and O's, Go Forth and Design and Go Forth and Create, which are the technologies ones. Design is the CAD one and Create is the computer science one. And these are the ones that are technologies based, but using the fourth bridge as their sort of tool for development. And we've also created a whole range of, included a range of images from the National Archives of Scotland. And National Archives and Records of Scotland have given us permission to share these, and these are all in the pack. So again, if you're linking it to STEM challenges and looking at cantilever experiments and things, you've got them to see how they were developed. There's a whole thing on that too. So where do you find these resources? So on Glow, you would go down to the last tile at the bottom, the flag, Scottish ones, and you'd go into the professional learning communities. From there, you select the technologies, National Technologies Community, and you'll see at the very bottom here, we've got a tile specifically for these resources. So when I click that, it takes me into this page. So it gives you a little bit of context about the project. There's a link that takes you to the Scottish TENS project, which is the wider project that the CDDV, the Centre for Digital Documentation and Visualisation team, created. So there's a whole range of resources in there as well for you to have a look at and investigate with your young people. And then you simply select the icon that you want to look at the project for. So if we go into here, this is the Discover one. So we've got all of these. I'm just going to change the view very quickly. There we go. So as you can see here, we've got that the DYW video. We've got the pack that I'm just going to show you in a second. We've got the quiz video demo for you to look at with colleagues perhaps. We have an amazing fly-through, if I just click this there, that you started to see a little bit. Oops. It's quite large. This may or may not work. Oh no, it's working.
One of my favourite things to do with this video, although it's not really applicable here, is to see if people think in the first few seconds if this is live capture or if what they think it is, because this is actually taken from the point cloud, and there's an amazing guy at Historic Environmental Scotland called Al Rawlinson, and he has this on a huge screen that you can do a fly through with, and it's a really nice way to get the young people to understand the sheer scale of it.
There's lots of context for us to put these resources into in terms of DYW and social studies and technologies. So we've got all of those, and as I was showing you there, you can see there's 20 resources in here. These are the clothing cards, which you're just about to open up. So each card has an image in it, and it also has a text card in it. So you could select that, and then it lets you see kind of what it, oops, it's not doing it very well. It lets you have a full image that you could print off and use. You could also import them as sprites into Scratch, and you could use them for computing science and so on. So all of those are available to you in there. We've then got, if I go back into my resources, if I go into here we are. So Here is what a pack looks like. So we've got the title. You can see here it gives you a level that the challenge would be based on. We've got objectives and E's and O's, and then we've broken each challenge down to show you exactly what the main activity is and then what each of the challenges in the games contain. So you can see the one that's relevant to your own current teaching plan. There's also opportunities for assessment within there, and then we've linked it again to the E's and O's that are linked that might not be the primary ones but may be suitable with IDL. And as I was mentioning earlier, we've got extension of where you can go for additional support. There's the AR apps that I was mentioning at the start. And here we've got, it's really good because we've been able to add in links to email addresses, contacts for these people who might be able to come. So the archivists and the curators from NRS, National Records of Scotland.
And two of the archivists were heavily involved in this project, especially a lovely lady called Tessa, who is their education lead and who's really keen to work with schools on this resource and all their others.
They can come and help you find out about the life of the
Briggers,
the people who worked on the bridge, but you might also want to contact them to look at archival footage and images that they have, because they have amazing resources and they provided a lot. There's the same with Historical Environmental Scotland and the Engine Shed, and then there's an amazing organisation called the Briggers who've written a book about the bridge, and they're happy to come and do talks and they do experiments with people and things like that. It also links out to the Young Engineers and Science Club for STEM links and so on. And then beyond that, all of the resources that I was telling you about, you can see here, can be printed off, used. All of the photographs are available to you to use. And I love this last one. This is from Canmore, which is part of Historical Environmental Scotland's archives. So this is the invitation for the fourth bridge being opened on the 4th of March. As well, we've also got a list of archival records, so if you are going and working with these partners, you can identify which image from the photographs that you would like to use. So, if I open up Create quickly. So within Create, this is the computing science one, you can see it forms the same process. Oops, let me just make that bigger for you. It forms the same process. Here are the links at the start at resources that take you to the Scratch projects that I showed you, where to go to get additional information around learning about computing science and computational thinking. But you can see the full projects, or you can just go to Scratch directly. There's also some really nice videos that are included that are archival, and there are some resources from UNESCO that are available. It gives you timescales for each of the activities, and as I was showing you, it gives you a guide on what each of the computing science bits, what each of the lesson parts looks like. Again, for IDL, we've linked it to other E's and O's for when you're doing your planning, and we've given you some extension. And as ever, and they're not all the same, so we've linked out to whatever are the most appropriate contacts that you might want to make. And then in the design one,
this is the largest of the 3 learning packs, although the game is obviously the main component that we showed you earlier. In pack terms, this again allows you to understand how you could use these resources, gives you lesson plan concepts and links to IDL. There's also going to be a future webinar on using CAD-based software for early years and primary teaching staff, so look out for that. We've given you a range of imagery which shows the process that was gone through to look at the cantilever, which in its day was groundbreaking. And that's those men sitting on the chairs, demonstrating it there, and that's a really famous image for the bridge. There's also architectural models and architectural drawings, which again, if we're thinking about DYW and you're linking out to your current day partners,
come in and speak about BIM, so Building Information Management Systems. So like architect companies might come and say how they do it, and they could compare and contrast what they've just been shown from a current day employer to one of those older images. And again, because the fourth bridge is at the 4th, obviously, you may not be in that location. So what we've done is we've broken it all down into these components so that you could again have this as a display, have flashcards, think about the components they want to use in their bridge and get them to build it up using the like flashcards they pulled out of a box or that you've got on the wall. If we just close all the millions of pages I've just opened, I'm going to show you one thing in here. So in design, we've also given you, if you've got slightly older pupils, so you can see we've got all those videos I showed you and we've got all those cards available as just PDFs or photographs if you don't want the whole pack. But we've also got some additional videos. So the skewback is the round bit that goes into the ground above the caisson in the river, and it's specific to the Forth Bridge. So what we've done is when we're speaking to kids about how does it stay in the ground and how is that shape built up and how is it stable, and that links right through to things like if we're doing volcanoes and where is the most stable way to build your house before the earthquake hits or things like that. We've given you videos of how these components are built so they have a better understanding. So again, these are based on the scans, looking at the design process. It lets them see how something would be built like that. Why we can have a discussion about why it might be reinforced, why is there so many layers, and then we can look at how it's built internally based on what it might look like externally as well. So we've got that whole concept of thinking as well. We're having that whole sort of process thinking. And again, it takes it apart. So it's a really nice, there's lots of nice tools in there that make it really clear to see. Kids can then identify where that might be on the bridge and what bits do what, and if they're testing out their bridge, what's maybe missing, and it shows you that skewback on each of these cantilever points. Okay, so as I've said, we've got all of those resources available in Glow from that National Technologies site. But if you go to the professional learning community, that will take you to social studies. So this QR code will take you straight there. So there's a huge wealth of resources that are on the social studies PLC. But we also have that tile that takes you straight there, and if you have a Glow account, and you can access not just the Forth Bridges resources, but a whole range of other resources. If you don't want to access it for Glow, maybe you want to look at it off Glow, or share it with parents for them to review it. You can use this QR code or this, but this QR code and this image will take you straight to the Forth Bridges website. So if you go to the Forth Bridges website and go in the Forth Bridge area, you'll see this page here, and you can see these icons down in the middle are the 360, they take you out to the 360 videos that you can put in headsets and things like that as well. Gives you some context, and at the bottom of that page there's also all of the resources are available out with Glow. But we would suggest that you use the Glow links if you are based in a school, and that way you've always got everything that you need in one place and it won't ever move and things like that. As I've mentioned, some of the tools we do the digital learning team often run computing science webinars, and there is going to be one on Tinkercad and CAD-based resources in term 3 as well, and I'm sure there'll be additional computing science ones. So please always check out DigiLearn Scott 2. There's lots of resources and information available on there, and that's where to find upcoming webinars. Can I just check if anybody has any questions? I've done a lot of talking. Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask about the project? No comments, Susan?
Miss Mackenzie is amazed by the wealth of resources and information that you've shared.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. I'm really glad. Yeah, what I would say as well is a lot of the digital documentation team are from Historic Environmental Scotland, and their Scottish Tens area and their Engine Shed website is also worth investigating. They do some amazing stuff through there, so it's probably worth a check out. Thank you so much all for your time this afternoon. Our Twitter feeds are DigiLearn Scott for Susan and I, and Robertson Lynn. It's on the screen there for Lynn Robertson. She's the SEO for social studies. So if you have any questions or you'd like to share what you're doing, Susan and I can definitely know, and I'm sure I could speak for Lynn, we love seeing on Twitter what people are doing, following these sessions and how they're using stuff. So please do tag us in. It's always lovely to see how people are using different resources. But if you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch.